Hello, world. This is Daniel Rucker here on True Table. We are back at it again this week with a different topic for you guys. And I hope up to this point, you guys have been enjoying the content and the things that have been discussed on the channel thus far. My hope again is to continue to bring content and bring forth my perspective and just share with you some of the things that I have experienced, things that I've learned, things that I've grown to understand, in that hopes that we can just grow together, change things together, because there's a lot of things that do need to be addressed. So today's topic is, do women want a good man or a good project? Let's talk about it. No, definitely. Let's get in there. So some may be asking, Daniel, like, where, why this topic? How do you come up with this stuff? What makes you make a statement that is so broad and such a hard, concrete of a generalization? Some may say that. And that is definitely what it is. It's a generalization. It is a generalization of my perspective. It's a generalization of my experiences and things that I have seen, I've experienced, I've discovered, I've surveyed. I believe that women don't really want a good man. As much as it is heavily advertised in the media that they do, their actions and their constant patterns seem to state otherwise. So one of the things I like to do is bring to you guys certain levels of context for my content. That's what I want to say. Context for my content. and that is within researching and grabbing certain articles and books and things of that nature, just to expand upon my delivery of what I'm saying. So I was scouring the internet, preparing for this particular show, and what I found in a New York Post article, which was actually created back in August of 2018, titled "Men Can Be Too Smart to Date." And I just was like, wow. So I clicked on it and I dove in and was like, men can be too smart to date. Yeah, I can't wait to read this. So in the first line of the article, it states, being too smart actually puts women off. Being too smart actually puts women off. That, I sat back for a second. Me talking about, do women want a good man or a project? Me constituting myself a good man, I would consider myself relatively smart. I think intelligence is one of those components that you can attach to someone being a good man. And obviously intelligence and smart is subjective. It could be perceived in many different ways. But for sake of argument and time, I would say that I'm one of those people who belong to, or I possess one of those characteristics. And what I have found in my dealings with the opposite sex is that intelligence doesn't seem to be one of the most attractive features when trying to sell yourself, or rather gain their interest in you romantically. It actually does not seem to be one of the concerning characteristics or issues at all dealing with most women that, again, I've perceived and that I've encountered thus far. So it also goes on to say that women want a man to be smart, but they don't want him to be too smart. And that made me sit back too. Too smart. What is too smart? Like, I had to sit back for a second and really kind of ponder and try to rationalize maybe what that concluded. And it didn't seem to make much sense to me. There is obviously no limit to intelligence. There obviously no limit to someone's cognitive process per se. So why would they do some research and create content on the internet and publish it and state something so concrete per se? And it was interesting. It was curious. Now, in my personal experience, like I was saying earlier, I actually have had conversations with different women in different capacities. A lot of women I've actually talked to have been what I would perceive to be associates and friends. I never have been one person to just jump in there and see a woman who may be attractive, or there may be a attraction, whether it's mutual or one-sided. However, I'm just an open-minded person, and I like to get to know people's perspectives, specifically women's perspectives. And what I have found is that depending on where she is, depending on her perceived position of her maybe power, maybe value, maybe status, whichever, if she's talking to someone who is as equally intelligent or smart, someone who is as equally cognitively strong and sound and wisdom and judgment, whichever, those conversations, depending on her expectation, could create a certain dynamic or create a certain lack of attraction, depending on what she perceived it to be. Now, I said a lot of stuff right there, so let me break it down. Sometimes I feel that women prefer to interact with a man that unconsciously or consciously makes them feel like they are the more intelligent of that interaction or the more intelligent of that pair. Why do you say that, Daniel? I've seen it. I've witnessed it. Now, some may be screaming on the other end right now saying, that's not true. Men don't want smart women. There's so much data to prove it. Men don't like women to be smart. They like them to be dumb and blonde and whatever. I don't personally agree with that. I believe that there is a space for every individual. There's a space to where a person may not want to sit up and talk about quantum physics per se, just picking that topic. But intelligence and, smarts of any capacity should be appreciated if you're dealing with the man. If you're dealing with the man, he would definitely appreciate you being intelligent and smart, in fact, intrigued, and so much so that usually it's attractive. But I already feel like this particular topic is going to have a couple of series to it, this particular topic. So for sake of time, let me continue to move on. So yeah, that's some of the things I concluded. One of the things that I did discover also was that later on in the article, it was stating that intelligence, most women label, if a man is too smart, he can be perceived as high maintenance. And that threw me all the way off. That had me confused, and I'm like, can a man be too high maintenance? Like, do those two things belong together, like a man and then high maintenance? Like, I wasn't sure, actually. I've never encountered that. I've never seen that. But interesting enough, I actually have heard it said. I've still yet to witness it, a man being too high maintenance. I would arguably say that most of the time, men in any capacity, just as a male species, are fairly simple creatures. Most males, most men don't require that much from what I've seen. Entertainment, food, and sex. Yes, I said sex. Sex is an important component, and most men need sex, want sex. But anyway, so why do women want projects? I went on to further read in some articles and some different, context on the internet. According to an article actually from Esquire published in 2017, September of 2017, it states that women are actually happier with less attractive men. And there was 113 cases that was compiled in this study. Now, why am I stating this particular fact? Because the whole premise of this particular episode is why women want projects, not good men. That's been my perception. And a project could be represented as something that is not whole, something that is not constructed yet, something that is not finished. In my experience, and I've often said this to different young ladies that I have unofficially counseled or officially counseled, however you want to conclude it, that I believe that there's a difference between a male and a man. I believe that genitalia-wise, that yes, we are males. Obvious tools and assets of sorts would conclude that. But a man is someone who arrives at a point of discovery, arrives at a point of awareness. when you're interacting with a man, you'll know he's a man. One, because he's sure of himself. He's someone who is very clear in understanding his position in life, where he's at, where he's going, usually working towards something. There's a lot of components that conclude him being a man. What I thought, and just my discovery and growing in a lot of ways, is that is what every woman would actually want. Someone who they didn't have to necessarily build or deposit so much. I hear women talk about having to be the accountant, the mother, the nurse, the preacher, the pastor, the slut, the mechanic, and so on. And a lot of times when those conversations have happened, when I can get a word in, I often ask them, well, what type of guy are you dealing with? Because if you're doing so much lifting and being the value, the asset of that particular relationship, are you really with a man? It raises some questions. I don't. Anyway, so why is this something that I see to be an issue? Well, I see it to be an issue because a lot of it is verbiage based, a lot of it is experience based, a lot of it is sometimes based on individuals' patterns. I have noticed that women who seem to be more on the insecure side, who are still in a state of discovery or have experienced trauma per se, tend to pick partners who are less likely to challenge them, who are less likely to bring a certain type of standard for himself. This society sometimes have given men a second seat or second position in relationships. I could argue this in so many different ways. Something as simple as a wedding. Most people would state that in the involvement of the creation of that special day, the actual presence of a man is very non-existent. It's really centered around the bride. And it is something that what's interesting to me is that it's an institution that's for two people. It's an institution that usually requires, a male to first of all petition and offer himself, his life, his energy, his resources, his family, his everything, as well as a woman. But the value seems to be more so placed on, the woman per se, which I'm not going to get into in this particular topic matter. That is an episode saved for another time. But what I'm stating is that, going back to my original point, we have to figure out, ladies, what is it that we're looking for when it comes to this man? Are we really looking for a man? And we got to be honest. It's okay to say, I don't want someone who's high functioning. I don't want someone who's maybe wealthy. I don't want someone who's overly popular. And you have your choice to pick who you want. I just encourage you to be careful on the verbiage that you're using. It's such a social accepted term where women are always screaming, there's no good men. There ain't no good men around. Where's the good men at? Gosh, you can jump online and see this all the time. And what's interesting is that sometimes they have a good man and they're still saying there ain't no good men. And you're like, lady, you got a good man right there in your life. What are you talking about? But what I wanted to discuss today is just that we as people, but in this specific topic, ladies, we have to be very careful on what we're focused on. There are certain components of men. There's certain essence that exists when you're interacting with a man. And when you're interacting with a man, there will be clear-cut, hard characteristics that exist in knowing that you are dealing with the man. One of the things I want to encourage you ladies to probably pick up and read if you have time is a book by Norwood. It's 1985 classic called Women Who Love Too Much. And this book pretty much talks about the toxic behavior of why women pick destructive men, why women tend to pick men who are more project-based, who come with issues and inferiority complexes and lack of clarity on who they are and what their contribution to the world is, and so on and so forth. So ladies, if you have time, that's Norwood's 1985 classic, Women Who Love Too Much. I'm approaching my time. I would definitely like to get more into this. I hope you guys enjoyed this particular broadcast today. This is Daniel Rucker on True Table. Follow me on True Table on Facebook as well as True Table on Instagram. I'll be coming to you guys next week. When you get a chance, hit that subscribe, hit that like button, leave some comments. I definitely appreciate your time today. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much. You guys have a good one.